Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the second stakeholder meeting of our Equity Indicators project. I don't see the chat very easily, so I just want to say that I think we have Director Shannon Buggs from the Mayor's Office of Complete Communities on the call, and we also have the Mayor's Director of Resilience and Sustainability, Priya Zachariah, on the call. Is there anyone else I should point out, Lynn?
Yes, Sarah Diaz and Bill Fulton with Rice and Kinder.
Okay, thank you for having Kinder with us. We have got a great relationship with them on this project, and I'm glad they're here with us today. So I just really want to thank everyone for your continued interest in this project. It's incredibly important as Houston moves into 2022 to be able to address and to assess and address some potential inequities that we have in our city. To, as the mayor has said many times, when Houston rises, we rise as one. So again, thank you for your time. I'm going to hand it off to Lynn now, and we're going to dig into the first part of the work.
Thank you, Director Wallace-Brown. I'd like to just take a minute to go through the agenda today. At the last stakeholder meeting, an equity definition was presented. This definition was drafted for the purposes of this initiative, and we'll provide an update on that definition first on the agenda. The methodology behind this framework leads to the overall city score, and the bulk of today's presentation will focus on the themes, topics, indicators, and getting your feedback on all of those. We'll drive the indicators and answer any questions you may have and open the floor for discussion. We need feedback from the general public about this process. Thus, we need your assistance getting the word out to them. In order for the website to be robust, to be engaging, we're planning on history, a timeline, and storytelling, which we feel is very important for this initiative. We solicit your input and knowledge, your experience, in order to make this portion of the website the best that it can be. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. However, we will check in with you along the way and break for questions and comments, but I encourage you to post any comments or questions that you have in the chat or use the raise your hand feature along the way. And lastly, we'll go over the next steps for the initiative. What you see on the screen is the equity indicators definition on the left-hand side and the Houston's commitment on the right-hand side. The definition reflects some of the sentiment that has been expressed in Resilient Houston's work, including the equity charge and the urban resilience definition. And our equity definition continues to focus on equity. I mentioned this in the last meeting, but this definition has been drafted and commented on at various steps. We have worked on it internally as staff. We've reviewed it by the resilience officers in the department. We've reviewed it with the mayor's office, and we've done some pre-work to provide this definition that you see in order to be able to get comment and feedback from you. I do want to stress and urge that our goal is to have a very clear and concise definition for this project. And we realize that there are lots of things that can be added to this definition. And we may not be able to address every single last comment in the definition. In fact, that internal review that I mentioned, we did this. And that's how we came up with the Houston's commitment that's on the right-hand side. We feel that both are very important, and they explain and describe Houston's equity indicators very well. I want to stop and just read this definition, and then on the next slide, I'll go through the comments that we've heard so far. Equity is achieved when a Houstonian's race, ethnicity, disability, or sexual orientation does not predict their outcome, limit their choice, or access to opportunity. Houston's commitment is the City of Houston is committed to mobilizing all departments, all divisions, and programs to review, revise, and implement systems providing for equity as defined in the definition. In order to ensure limitless choices, opportunities, and freedoms, we will invest and support historically underserved and marginalized communities, such as people of color, people with disabilities, people with low incomes, immigrants and refugees, youth, and those with limited English proficiency. This commitment includes the provision of the amount of goods, services, supports, and resources specifically required to accomplish the equity goals in the City of Houston. In doing so, we will meet our vision as a city to offer opportunity for all and fully celebrate our diversity of people, economy, culture, and places. Now, we did receive comment in the last meeting. We heard you. We heard the comments that were made not only in the meeting, but also on Let's Talk Houston. So I will go through the comments that we've heard so far. How do you incorporate diverse communities of people within the definition statement of equity? We talked a little bit about that, and we'll use these comments as we further refine the definition. Using class or social class consistently in the definition and city's commitment. How could we include the need of equity in terms of gender and class within the framework of the definition? Are these indicators for the City of Houston and its operation, or is it about both city operations and broader community needs, resources, and processes? Include a statement in the commitment about the emphasis on race and ethnicity. There is work being done citywide to address equity across multiple components. Also, we received the following comments. The definition appears to be written from a deficit perspective. Reframe it as what we seek to achieve rather than what we do not want or currently have in relation to equity. And the last comment, I liked how the definition from Dallas referenced identities and social circumstances broadly. If the definition and commitment are presented together, it might be beneficial to reference identities and social circumstances in the definition with the commitment, providing more detail by listing out each group to support more comprehensive inclusion. I also agree with the comment made during the stakeholder meeting on December 15th to reframe the definition to what we seek to achieve rather than what we want, what we do not want. Because this is a continuous process, we're going to keep the comment period open on the definition. We will continue to collect comments through the public engagement period. Some of the stakeholders here today may not have been at the first meeting, and so we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to review the definition and the commitment and provide any comments. In order to send us your thoughts and feedback, you can do so in one of two ways. Either you can use letstalkhouston.org/equity. There is a comment box at the bottom of the page, or you can send comments directly to devante.caldwell@houstontx.gov. I want to pause here and check in with the stakeholders that are in the meeting and see if there are any questions or comments before moving forward. And thank you, Devante, for putting your email in the chat. Okay. Next on the agenda is to just do a quick recap of what equity indicators are, especially for those that may not have been at the first meeting. So what does it all mean? Where did it come from? You know, how did we get here? Equity Indicators is a tool that was developed by the City University New York, or CUNY, Institute for State and Local Governance. This tool was developed to help cities understand and measure equality or equity in their city. You can think of it kind of like if you've ever looked at Walk Score. This is a process that will look at data and provide an overall score for the entire city of Houston. Once developed for a city, equity indicators help measure the disparities faced by disadvantaged groups. The data is analyzed in a way that will produce that overall score, and that score can be tracked over time. The goal for this initiative is not just to have the score and have the score out there and visible, but to support policy development, to demonstrate the effectiveness of current policies and initiatives, and highlight areas where new policies and/or initiatives may be needed. I want to pause here for a moment and invite Yaneth Calderon, who's with the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Sustainability, to discuss equity a little bit more, looking at the cascading effects of equity.
Definitely. Hi, y'all. Thanks for joining us. If you're not too familiar with this cartoon, it is on the Resilient Houston document on page 128. It's essentially an example of compounding effects and the cascading effects that inequities have on certain populations in our community. This is the story of Manny and Manuela, and here that you see on the screen, and I'll talk you through it if you're not able to see the small text. Essentially, Manny and Manuela are on their way to school and work. They have a flat tire and need to take a detour to the car shop. At the car shop, Manny learns that his other tire is also worn down and will need to replace 2 tires and fix some damage that was done to the car. Manny doesn't have the cash needed at his disposal to fix his car right away. Again, the detour made Manny and Manuela late, causing Manuela to miss a math test, and she has to make that up after school. They have no other option but to take the bus to school and work in the evenings and then the next morning. Manny and Manuela are late again. Manny's workplace is understaffed, and because he is arriving late, he may be fired. Again, Manuela is also late for the second time, and so she gets detention, causing her to miss her babysitting gig that she has, again, losing additional income as well. Manny asked his boss for an advance on next week's paycheck so that, again, he can pick up his car as soon as possible and avoid more late mornings and essentially avoid getting fired. He asked if he can pick up extra shifts over the month so that he's not behind on his rent because to Manny and Manuela, every penny counts in his family. And again, the cash advance puts his offsets his budget for the month. Manny is able to get his car back, but now he has to miss family time with Manuela because he has to pick up extra shifts at work to make ends meet. This is the story of Manny and Manuela and then compounding / cascading effects of inequities. Keep this story in mind as we continue our discussion of equity indicators and think about that, those effects that generate just larger inequities here within our Houston community.
Thank you, Leanna. I mentioned earlier that CUNY developed equity indicators and want to mention that they did this in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation. Because of the work that they've done, there are currently 6 cities, I mentioned this at our first meeting: Dallas, New York City, Oakland, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Tulsa. I want to also thank again the Shell Foundation for their support in this process here in Houston. Next, what we'd like to do is walk you through the indicators, the methodology, and the framework. So I'd like to bring up Sarah Diaz, who is the Senior Research Analyst with the Rice University Kinder Institute.
Hi, thank you, Lynn. Good afternoon, everybody. So I will begin with kind of a framework of what we are talking about today. So in the CUNY methodology, there are 4 levels. These reports are designed in a way to create a score for each indicator, and then a score for each topic and a theme, and finally an equity score for the city. Each level rolls up to the level above it. The indicators are at the base. These are the things that we are measuring. Indicators should be thought of as the best proxies we could find to measure complex disparities. The indicators roll up into topics. The topics are the specific areas within each theme that we're focusing on. The topics roll up into themes, and the themes are the main areas of priority we are looking at. The themes roll up to provide the city with an overall equity score. As Janeth mentioned, we know there are compounding effects of inequity, and the city score is a way to provide a holistic picture of the disparities experienced by the different racial and ethnic groups in Houston. Next slide, please. The City of Houston's equity framework contains 6 themes. In order for the city equity score to be balanced, each theme needs the same number of topics, and each topic needs the same number of indicators. Within each topic, we have identified 4 themes to focus on. Within each topic, there are 3 indicators. This gives us a total of 72 indicators for the report. The 6 themes and their 4 subtopics, or 4 topics, are listed on this slide. The themes are economic opportunity, health, public safety, environmental and climate risk, built environment, and access and inclusion. I'd like to point out that environmental and climate risk will be unique to the City of Houston's equity indicator reports. The other 6 cities did not include this in their reports. Okay, next slide. So the city, theme, topics, and indicators all receive equity scores. The city score is the average of the 6 theme scores. The theme scores are the average of the 4 topic scores in that theme, and the topic scores are the average of the 3 indicators in that topic. So indicator scores are based on the ratio between the outcomes for 2 population groups, the most and least advantaged racial ethnic groups for each indicator. The ratio is then converted to an equity score using an algorithm developed by CUNY. Scores range from 1 to 100, with 1 representing complete inequity and 100 representing complete equity. The racial ethnic groups that will be used as the most and least advantaged groups ratio for each indicator will be based on which group is the most and least advantaged for that indicator. So some indicators may compare Black and Asian populations, while others might compare Hispanic and non-Hispanic white populations. We won't know which groups will be compared for which indicator until we process the data for that indicator. Next slide. So that was kind of a lot. So here's an example to kind of walk you through what we mean when we talk about equity indicators and what you will see in the report. So for this example here, it's a little small for some people. I'll walk through it. This is an example using eviction rates. The citywide equity score for eviction rates is 38. Remember, the scale is 1 to 100, with 100 being total equity. A score of 38 shows us that eviction rates are different for the racial ethnic groups. There is inequity in this indicator. To get the equity score, we calculate the eviction rate for census tracts where the majority population is people of color, and the eviction rate for census tracts where the majority of population is non-Hispanic white. We take the ratio of those rates. That ratio is then converted to a score using CUNY's algorithm. As you can see, we calculate 2 consecutive years of equity scores to see if there has been any changes. We can see that the 2022 score of 38 is slightly lower than the score of 2021 score of 40. This shows us that not only is there an equity in eviction rates, but it did not improve from the previous year. The equity change score is -2. And that was a lot. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, we'll go to the next slide. Okay. So in addition to creating an equity score for the city, an atlas is being developed that will map some of these indicators. So this is just a draft, an example. I'll give you an idea of what the atlas might look like. So I'll go through it for you. The red dots are the census tracts where the majority population are people of color. The blue dots are the census tracts where the majority population are non-Hispanic white. The size of the dot represents the eviction rate for that census tract. So while the atlas doesn't map the equity indicator score, it does show spatially where the disparity is occurring, and it gives us an idea of what areas and who are being affected the most by the indicator being mapped, in this case, evictions. So eviction rate is just one example of the 72 indicators we have identified for this project. After this meeting, we'll be sending out a list of all the indicators as well as a survey to get your feedback on those indicators that have been selected. It's important to remember 3 things about these indicators and the underlying data that we need to process them. First, the data must be able to be racially and ethnically disaggregated in one of 2 ways, either at the individual level within the city or by census tract zip codes, where the racial ethnic makeup can be used to identify majority racial and ethnic groups. The data also needs to be regularly collected for comparison across consecutive years, and the data needs to be able to be interpreted as a positive or negative change. It's important to remember that we are trying to select indicators that adequately measure the most important aspect of each topic. We look forward for your input on this survey. Thank you. I think you're muted, Lynn.
Are there any questions about this, the methodology or the process so far? What we're going to do by the end of the day is send everyone the full list of all of the 72 indicators for you to review. We'd like you to take a look at them and provide feedback via a survey on letstalkhouston.org. So this is an opportunity for you to get any questions out while we're here. I'd like to bring up Devontae now to show the survey so that you can see what the survey would look like once you've logged in. Devante, do you have your screen up? Can you share?
Yes, I have it up right now. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So what you will see in front of you is what the survey looks like. Each page each page is focusing on one of the 6 themes. The first being the economic opportunity. At the beginning, it lists some of the current data sources that we have to support these proposed indicators that you will see below. The first is being one of the following topic areas underneath this theme, starting with employment. Specifically, their job, it provides them more insight on what employment entails, and why job and opportunities are important and to support people struggling to afford housing, food, utilities, and so on. And for each one, it will ask you if the following indicators, if you agree or not agree that these 3 indicators adequately measure Houston's employment opportunities. So you can, for each one of these indicators, so for example, high payment employment, unemployment rate, and opportunity youth. You can select yes, that you agree that this indicator adequately measures employment opportunities under the racial and ethnic lens, or maybe, or no. And then so forth as you would go and review each one of these indicators, and then going under each subtopic like workforce education, banking and business opportunity, and income and poverty. But despite these multiple choice questions, there are 2 open-ended questions that we would like to get more of your thoughts. Starting off with, like, if there are some indicators above that you have selected maybe or no, like you're not, that you do not agree that this particular indicator does not measure, would not measure properly of income and poverty or workforce education. You can explain your thoughts in this box. And then also, if there are any data sources to really help us to shape these indicators and making sure that we have the proper information to measure. If there are any data sources that you would like to recommend us, please feel free to write that name of the source in this box, along with the name and contact information, any way that we can reach out to the point of contact person with that source. Are there any questions? So in totality, as you will complete this page, you will move on to the other themes such as health. Same type of setup where you have the 4 subtopics and the 3 indicators beneath, and more opportunities to let us know more of your thoughts on these indicators towards the bottom, and then public safety, and then so forth. And this will be a survey that would be shared with you sometime after this meeting today. So we will send out the link for everyone to look at the indicators, along with like Lynn has stated, a PDF document of the list of indicators and more insight in detail behind those descriptions and so forth. So I'll stop there if there are any questions.
I saw Juan's hand for a minute. Yes, Juan.
Yes, so I'm assuming this is the survey that will be distributed to the general public eventually?
Yes, it will. So we not only do we want you to take the survey, but as you're taking the survey, if you see any recommendations for how to make this better for the general public, we'd appreciate those comments as well.
So how many different languages is this survey going to be available once it goes out to the general public? And will there be a system in place where the wording is properly translated to the proper languages?
Our Let's Talk Houston engagement tool has a select language feature that, Devontae, can you swiggle your mouse around in the top right? His hand is pointed at select language. Anyone can translate the survey into the, I think it's like 100 and something languages. We are relying on Google for this. We feel that it is the best way to reach the most number of languages possible in order for as many people to fill out the survey as possible.
I would just caution using Google Translate, specifically if you're doing it for Spanish. I'm not sure the other languages, but I would ask, you know, that double eyes take a look at that translation. And if there is a way where once it goes out to the general public, that select language could be more noticeable at the start of the screen. I'm not sure that's an IT issue that can be addressed, but you know, like for me, you know, even for me, having to look at the very right of that screen it's challenging. So there's a way where we can put that visible for the general public. I think that would be great.
We may have to use our PR and marketing and flyers in order to make sure that people see where it is. This is a third-party software. They've placed it in that top right corner. We do not have access to change that layout on the page, but we will definitely make sure that we're making that aware to people in other languages. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
At least I'm assuming this rep call. I think I muted myself again. I think we can add comments to this particular survey in regard to the topics that are mentioned in it, and how long, how many pages, 2, 3, 5, 20? How long actually is the survey? Because yeah, I want to make some comments in regard to it. And I look forward to actually having the opportunity to view it. But this is going to be held within this selected group prior to actually being distributed, say, amongst the public, so that it can be, you know, critiqued or put together for a final draft.
Devontae, can you scroll back down to the open boxes? These two boxes are available on each page. There is one page per topic. So there are 6 topics. So there will be 6 pages of these indicators. At the end of each page, you can comment on that that topic.
Yeah, that was my question. You know, I see the first page, and I think I heard him mention health was another, and you know, maybe on different pages and the like. I know we're not seeing the full survey here, so I'll just look forward to seeing the complete survey once it's sent.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Caldwell. Any other questions or comments?
We have one comment about how will we plan to get the survey out to people who do not have internet access? Will there be paper surveys available?
Yes, we will make paper surveys available, one in digital format so that stakeholders are able to send that out digitally to anyone that they feel may be able to share them in paper. And we can make some paper copies here and provide them to you on a limited basis within some reason. Did I answer?
Ms. Frazier.
There'd be paper surveys. Yes.
And then also followed by another question, how much public input responses qualifies the survey to be deemed a success?
That's a great question. Our goal is to have you help us get the survey out so that it can reach as many people as possible. We don't feel that we can do this alone as a city office. We need the stakeholders that are working in the communities to help get the word out and to get individuals to participate in the survey. I do want to speak to timing, and I'll recap that at the end of the meeting today. We'll have this survey available to you today by the end of the day. It will be open for 2 weeks. Then we'll close it down to make any modifications that we might need to before going to the public and being able to provide you with script and marketing materials and survey materials for a week, and then have the public survey open for 2 weeks as well. And I'll go over that again by the end of the meeting.
And we just have another good question. Are you collecting any information on individuals who complete the survey, such as name, address, or is it anonymous?
Can you go back to the first page, Devante? We would like to collect the zip code. We can provide a box for names, but we consider this, there is a box for a name and organization. For this survey with the stakeholders, we are asking if the representatives taking the survey now are part of a nonprofit, a government agency, or what type of organization that you're representing. We're not asking for people's addresses, but we can add a zip code.
Yeah.
Lynn, if I could interject for a moment, that's for the stakeholders, correct?
Yes, we know who you are as stakeholders. Our initial thought for the public was not to ask for home address, but to ask for zip code.
Yeah, I think that was the question, is when we go to the public, what are we collecting?
Yes, zip code will have a name field. It will not be a required field, but we will have a name field. And we can provide an opportunity for people to sign up for this workshop, for this equity indicators page, to get information about it as well. I see one more hand.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Jessica Davison. I'm with United Way of Greater Houston. I appreciated that clarification. And I am curious, though, when this does go to the public, if you're collecting zip code, if for some reason someone that maybe lives outside of this city limits receives the survey, will you be removing their responses from your results, or will you take that into consideration as well?
That's a good question. We will see the zip code, and depending on the comment, we may take that into consideration. We'll have to see, depending on what the response may be.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'll continue with the presentation. Thank you, Devante.
Thank you, everyone.
So in answering some of those questions, I may repeat information about the public engagement plans. But in order to make sure that this process represents the city of Houston well, we will have the public comment period open for 2 weeks, as well as your comment period. We will distribute surveys citywide. Again, we need your assistance to do this. We do have contact information. We have connections to civic and community groups, but we may not have a connection to all of your constituency. So we look to you for assistance in this manner. The survey will be conducted on Let's Talk Houston, but we understand that everybody doesn't have either a smart device or access to the internet or good access to the internet. And so we will be placing the survey in a PDF format, and we will also have paper surveys available. If you need that assistance, please reach out to Devontae Caldwell. We feel that it's important to capture Houston's history as it relates to equity. So in the final website, we want to make sure that we include a timeline of history and events. We have storytelling included, and we're planning on recording individuals in kind of a montage format or short videos. We need your guidance in identifying historical facts and candidates to be included in the interview process. So all of these things that we're asking from you, we look at it as an ambassador role. You're the stakeholders. You were invited here because you serve the community, because you have that connection, because you have experience with equity and inequity, and or maybe you are data experts. All of these roles are extremely important in this process. We'd like your support again. I'm repeating some of what I've already said to generate awareness. Equity Indicators is new in Houston, so we'd like your support in getting the word out about this. Helping to explain the initiative. It could be that you're explaining the initiative in layman's terms. Promote the website, because the website will be where the equity score is housed, as well as the report for the indicators, the history, the link to the maps. All of the information will link back to the city's website. We need your help as an ambassador to promote the survey. Again, to get as many individuals in the city of Houston to look at the information and tell us what they think. Some of the data experts have been looking at this data, and maybe we have missed something that the public can help us consider indicators for this process. And lastly, again, to share the survey with the constituents that you serve.
Speaking of promotion, we have a comment in the chat.
Yes.
A question, actually. Are you planning to promote the public survey using the city's water bill and other city websites and web pages?
We will consider that and reach out to Public Works to see if we can get that in the water bill. We will see how that works. Usually they have a long list of requests for the water bill, but that is something that we can consider. Yes. And what was the other portion of the question?
And other city websites and web pages.
Yes, our communication staff is on the line. She has great connection with the other departments, and we often share, for example, social media and email newsletter information between departments. So we will be doing that. Yes. Thank you.
Lynn, this is Eileen Egan. That was my question.
Hi,
And
Eileen. Happy
I
New
know
Year.
that the queue to get on the printed bill is long, but certainly the electronic pay page
Yes.
with the city water.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that you guys have explored that. That's been reported out in the My Complete Communities group. So
thank you for that, Eileen.
sure.
I appreciate that. And I've mentioned this already, but just to go through it again, history and storytelling. We want to capture the history of Houston as it relates to equity. And we want to make sure that we have some of the most important historical facts, markers, individuals that we need to speak with. We'd like your assistance in identifying the facts, the historical markers, the events that might have occurred, and the individuals that we need to speak to. So we will also add a short survey for you, the stakeholders, to help us identify these items that can be added to the history and the storytelling. We discussed this timeline in the first meeting. I just want to add it to the presentation again, where in January, we're having our second stakeholder engagement meeting. We will release the survey to you by the end of today and leave that survey open for 2 weeks. By the end of January, beginning of February, we will release that survey publicly. And at the end of that process in February, once the survey is completed, we'll be collecting that data and turning it over to Kinder and Rice in order for them to do the work that Sarah discussed earlier in today's meeting. Between February and May, they will be crunching numbers, cleaning the data, reviewing the data, getting the data in a format that will also be added to the atlas. The atlas is the mappable portion of the website where we can see examples of what the data looks like. We looked at an example earlier today in this meeting. The official launch and the celebration of all of these pieces being completed will be in May. That will include the overall score for the city, the definition for equity in Houston, releasing the actual indicators and the background on those indicators, the map atlas, the website, the timeline, the videos, and all of that will be launched in May. So I've mentioned some of these dates, but this is a nice summary. Your survey will be available for 2 weeks, and so that will close on Sunday, January 23rd at midnight. The next day, we'll send out materials to you so that you can use those materials to get the word out about the survey for the public. And then the public survey will be released January 31st and be open for 2 weeks. This concludes our presentation. We're opening the floor for any additional questions or comments that you might have.
Yeah, it's Rev Caldwell again. The presentation itself, once all the deliverables, all the surveys and all the information is gathered and is turned over to those institutions that are going to address it. In other words, what are we seeking? What's our goal? What's our objective? What's the, if we gather all this information, some of it we already know, but the other information is gathered. Once that's completed, what are we going to do now? Including surveys. Once all this is gathered and all the facts and all the above, are we going to, is there going to be something in place to address the quote unquote inequities that we see that are made prevalent as far as what is housing, what is healthcare, whatever it may be? The knowledge of it is great, and I think that's what we generally are aware of, the knowledge and of all the information and data, but what's the solution? Are there resolutions or solutions at the end of all the collecting of data and the information gathered? I may have gotten ahead of myself.
Yes, these indicators and the score can help drive policy decisions. If, for example, if a score came back, and I'm just throwing out a number, were a 10, this would let not only the mayor, but the departments know that this is an area that we really need to focus on and see what we can do from a city perspective in order to increase that score and reduce inequities. Is there a new program that can be put in place? Are there changes that need to be made within the city, the services that it provides, and how can we do that? This will give us a framework, a starting place to look to see what the city of Houston can do in order to reduce inequity.
Lynn, and I think to add on to that, this is also a tool for you all, for nonprofits, organizations in the community, so that you can use this and again, focus your efforts in pockets of the city that we can visually see that are, there's lower resources there for whatever reason. So I think it'll be a great tool for all of us to use.
And we see them, we're aware of them, we live them every day. So, it's just, rather than the bells and whistles and pomp and circumstance, we really would like, from a community perspective, to, once that acknowledgement is received, then actually doing something in regard to it. And I know that includes policy and all of the above, but gathering the information, and of course, we'll continue from a community perspective, push the envelope so that we can begin to really address the equitable issue rather than just showing the graphics.
And this information will be publicly displayed on the website. So as Yaneth mentioned, it's important for the nonprofits. You can use this also, for example, in fundraising efforts to bring more resources to the communities that you work in. I see a question from Carl and Eileen's hand. I want to take Carl's questions first. Will today's presentation be made available to us? Yes, we are recording this workshop, this meeting, and it will be made available on letstalkhouston.org. The first meeting was recorded as well and is linked to the letstalkhouston.org/equity website. And it's also available on YouTube if you are a follower of YouTube, planning department on YouTube. I see Eileen's hand.
Yeah, following up on Reverend Caldwell's question, and your part of your response to it. It's great to have the data that shows where those issues are, to have that available for us to be able to look at our communities or our interest areas. But as the city rolls out efforts to address inequities, how is that going to be public? And how will that be a sustainable, what's the sustainability of effort planning for rolling forward? It's great to put up a website, but then what? You know, kind of to Reverend Caldwell's point, you've got the data, now what? So how does the city show what it's doing, what other communities are doing, what other nonprofits are doing? It's like you're looking for a lot of engagement, but we've got to have a feedback loop in there. What's the progress?
I thank you for that addition to the question. I think that internally we need to put that on our agenda and discuss how we can provide that closing loop. I do want to mention that some of the sets of data may not be items that the city of Houston can directly impact. For example, unemployment. We may be able to provide programming that can help eliminate unemployment, but unemployment is a larger systemic type issue. There's so many factors that lead into why someone may be unemployed, from educational attainment to could be personality concerns or what have you. So there is some limit, I think. I don't think this is a panacea. This is not going to magically be able to overnight correct issues, but it will help us move toward programming and policy and investment that will help reduce inequity. The city has the ability to change within its structure, and hopefully we will also influence other structures that will reduce inequities as well.
Thank you. I understand you guys can't fix everything. But I think you guys also can serve as kind of a a touch point for either other organizations, agencies, nonprofits, you know, whoever are working on areas, you know, so that Let's Talk Houston really becomes a broad information source, not just a, you know, a delivery source, but you know, if I'm interested in homeless initiatives in a certain part of town, you know, who's working on that? You know, how does my group go out and do something about it? Rather than getting, you know, thousands of little splinters going, to be able to have some concerted work. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I see Chanel Frazier.
Hey, good afternoon and happy Friday and happy New Year, everybody. So as you were saying, Lynn, in regards to some of these issues being larger systemic issues, I think most of the equity indicators are larger systemic issues that maybe can't be, you know, solved or fixed by the city alone. And in regards to, you know, the organizations that are present today reaching out to their constituencies, I think that something that could potentially move the needle is actually encouraging large funders and supporters, corporate partners, there we go, of the city to also try and put this survey out, because I think that on the call right now are the people that are doing a lot of the work regularly. So I understand where some of the sentiment in regards to what happens next is where it's coming from, because I think that without a survey, we understand that there are massive inequalities. So yeah, that's just kind of a bubbling thought as I'm listening to and processing everything. Like, we're going to look at the survey, we're going to do the survey as stakeholders, but then it might also be an additional challenge to the organizations themselves, as the city of Houston is challenging their self right now. Maybe not necessarily to restructure, but to also make sure that they're doing the things that support equity to the best of their abilities as well. So kind of just a out there thought. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Director Bugs in the participants. I don't know if you would like to say something in regards to that last comment. All right, thank you.
Sure. The city has been working on equity in lots of different ways for quite a while, and it may be that we have not communicated as effectively about where we are doing the equity work, but we have the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities, we have the Mayor's the Office of Adult Literacy, we have a Women's Commission that was launched. We also have the Hispanic Advisory Board, the LGBTQ Advisory Board and Commission. So there's several different ways that the city has been taking an approach. This is the first way that we are centering race and ethnicity in those equity conversations in a much more intentional way than we have previously. But in totality, the Complete Communities Initiative is an effort to look at equity through the lens of historic disparities that have been aggravated by and sometimes predicated by race and class. And so we are, as a city, working towards addressing these issues in a systematic way that will allow for Houston to have a long-lasting solution to some of the disparities that we've seen over time. Does that get to what you were asking about? Thank you, Chanel.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I want to just recap and say, look for our email. We will send you the list of indicators. We will send you the link to the survey and other information about our next steps. And I thank you for being here. Thank you for dedicating your time to us for this process, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to everybody too. Bye.
Thanks. Happy New Year.
Thanks for everything.